The key speaker, first of all, Ms. Jane, CEO, Sehgal Foundation. Please give her a round of applause. And under the list of panelists, we have Mr. Aman Nair, National Vertical Head, CSR Times of India. Mr. Murlidhar Asthana, expert in public administration, good governance, and public policy. Mr. Ravi Kalra, founder, the Earth Savior Foundation. Please give them a round of applause. Speaker for the panel discussion 2, CSR Challenges and Roadmap for India.
In the midst of people different from us, actually. I also like the acronym RACE BHARAT, because one of the things that's essential from the rural development point of view is that we accelerate the pace of change to bring people dignified lives across rural India. My name is Jane Shikoski. I'm with Sehgal Foundation. There was a brief introduction, kind introduction of Sehgal Foundation this morning. We work in, and I guess I'll tell you a bit about the foundation. Yes, so we were started in 1999. We are focused on community-led development to bring about positive change in rural India. And we envision everybody as having a secure, prosperous, dignified life. Everybody in India should have that opportunity, a real opportunity. We've been working in 6 districts, Mewat, Haryana, Gurgaon a little bit, Alwar, Rajasthan, Karoli, Rajasthan, Samastipur, Bihar, and East Champaran, Bihar. So our main areas are water security, food security, and social justice. So we look at augmenting water supplies, helping get drinking water for schools and for communities, providing biosand filters as a way of cleansing water of biological contaminants, some storage innovations for water. We work with farmers on using scientific farming practices so that they get better crop yield. And we work in the good governance area with great energy because we feel that it is when local communities, through their panchayats, their health and sanitation committees, their school management committees, and through the citizenry at large, when they take ownership of development of their communities, change can occur and it can be sustainable. So actually I'm going to ask Anjali to talk about the projects. Anjali Godial is our Director of External Projects at Sehgal Foundation. We are just giving a few examples to show you what we see happening in the CSR sector.
So we have multiple projects with CSR companies. One of our projects is with Maruti Suzuki India Limited. So Maruti Suzuki, around their plant in Gurgaon, they have adopted a couple of villages, and in these villages they have provided infrastructure for sanitation. Now the issue with that was the lack of community connect. So the infrastructure was there, but the community, they were not owning it. So Maruti approached us with this issue, and then because we have been working with communities for the past 16 years, and that is our expertise. So we have a partnership project with Maruti wherein we are working with the communities, building their capacities to use that infrastructure and how communities can sustain that infrastructure. Because I mean, making the infrastructure available is just one part of the problem, but to address the issue of hygiene and sanitation at large, community ownership to use it and to sustain is very important. And that is where we are helping Maruti. We started with 2 villages last year, and now we are in talks to take it to another 5 villages. So we'll be working with them on 6 villages on this issue. So this is the project that we have with Maruti. Then these are some of the photographs. So all these roads, and then they have provided a drainage system. So this is what Maruti have done. And we are working with communities. In that photo, you'll see that we are building capacities of them, having community-based institutions in place, which can take care of these infrastructure. Oh. Okay. The next project we have is, we have a project with Coca-Cola Foundation. In this project, we are working in 5 villages in Alwar district, Rajasthan. Now, Alwar is a semi-arid area, and there is very little rainfall. So, and agriculture is mostly based on it's rain-fed agriculture. So, what we are doing in these 5 villages is building infrastructure for harvesting rainwater. So, as they have very little rainfall, so we have to build infrastructure in the villages that whatever rain falls in those villages, they can collect that water and use it for irrigation So water conservation, and the second issue is sanitation that we are helping. So in sanitation, we are promoting household toilets. So there is this government program, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. So what we are doing is we are creating awareness in the communities about this program and how communities can take benefit from this program. Because program is one, but then the villages, they don't know how to get money for building toilets. So we work with panchayats, we work with communities, build capacities, and link them with the government departments to get money for such projects. So this is another project we have. We started this project in 2015, and it will come to an end in this year. I think I missed one.
Would you like me to talk about Gali Gali Sim Sim? Would you like me to talk about the radio one?
Krishi Jyoti project. So this Krishi Jyoti project we have with Mosaic Company Foundation. In this project, we are again working with smallholder farmers and building their capacities on the sustainable agriculture practices. So we are training farmers on simple techniques like, the amount of seed they should use, the amount of fertilizers. We are also building their capacities on the use of micronutrients. In the agriculture, mostly farmers use urea and DAP. There is very little awareness on the use of micronutrients like zinc and potash, which are very essential for improving the productivity and maintaining the fertility of soil. So what we do with farmers is we have demonstrations. Suppose a farmer has 1 acre of land, so we'll say that half an acre we'll put the demonstrations, and half an acre you'll do the way you have been doing. Seed we'll provide, because they should not say that because of your seed you have better yield. So we do this demonstration. So in half an acre of land, they do by our ways. So we'll tell them this is the amount of seed you should use, this is the fertilizers you should use, and then in half an acre they'll do it themselves. So at the end of the season, they can see the difference for themselves. So this is what we have been doing with farmers in the Krishi Jyoti. Sorry, it moved. Oh. Yeah. And in this project also, we are working on water management, because agriculture without water doesn't make sense. So this is an integrated project where we have agriculture and we have water management. And Krishi Jyoti we started in 2008 with just 2 villages, and now we have spread to 45 villages in Mewar district, Haryana, and Alwar district, Rajasthan. Where do I?
Okay, I'd like to break in there for a moment and just say our experience at Segal Foundation with corporate social responsibility is that we do have these 2 long-term partners, Coca-Cola Foundation and Mosaic Company Foundation in U.S. and also the Indian branch of it. We have Maruti Suzuki and many other small CSR partners. So as we move on to the theme of this panel, which is challenges and way forward, basically, roadmap for India, we'll look at some of those issues about relationships with CSR partners. I'll just mention quickly the partnership we had for some years with Sesame Workshop Trust, which has Gali Gali Sim Sim in India. So we have a community radio that it took us 3 years to get a license, and we got the license in 2012 and have been broadcasting for 12 to 13 hours a day, reaching about 183 villages in Mewat, Haryana. So the idea of community radio is that local people run it. We provide tech support, we make sure people are trained, but the reporters are from the local area. They're bringing up issues that are important, and we are supporting them in coming up with good programming. So radio, of course, if people are listening to radio, which these days they can on mobile phones in addition to radio sets, it is helpful in spreading awareness, getting messages out. In terms of Gali Gali Sim Sim, it was world-class content that was in local language. We are not actually running that program right now, but we've merged it into a good local forum, which is a radio school that we have. It is largely for people outside the formal education system, for children outside the formal education system, as well as a program called Wak Hamara Hai. At this point, Anjali, why don't you come sit with us? And what I'd like to do is hear from the other panelists in terms of what you're doing in CSR. Let's just get the story out about what your expertise is here, and then we can step back and look at the questions of what are the challenges and what is the way forward. Would you like to?
Yeah, I think I have already spoken a bit about the initiative which Arsym is doing under the banner of Say Trees, and more prominently in South, but in North we are moving with the synergy of Segal Foundation. In fact,
some people weren't here in the morning, that's why a little bit about Say Trees.
Yeah, so Say Trees has been doing plantation primarily, only in fact, and for last 7 years. I post my Navy tenure was one of the co-founder of Say Trees, and then have been planting trees. So in fact, the name has been coined from Say Cheese. I don't know if many of you, when you click right the photograph, you say Cheese, and that's how the Say Trees actually came. And trees, because we don't plant sapling, we plant trees. Survivability of plant goes drastically high as soon as instead of sapling you start planting trees, and this has been the sole motto of Say Trees. All the projects which we have done, we choose plant which are already 5.5 to 6.5 feet high, and thereafter if you take care, generally most of the plantation which we do is pre-monsoon season that takes care of 1 year of maintenance in any ways, and 2 more years of attention to that tree would make sure that the tree survives. Our survivability of all the projects which we have done is more than 80%. So that's very high from the standards which otherwise are. One of the projects which we intend to do very soon is ahead of Manesar, along with Segal Foundation, wherein we intend to plant more than 1 lakh plant trees again, not the saplings. And if you go there, the project where we intend to do the project, you will realize there was already a project which was done again on the plantation, but none of those trees have survived. So that's the reason you have to do the same work again. And this is where I think a bit of process excellence has to be brought into. People are doing their stuff on ground, but they're not doing very diligently and very sincerely, and which is the reason that many a times the same area needs plantation again and again because the trees don't survive. So our experience has been very, very cooperative from the society's side, because I don't think that's the challenge for us. People have been very forthcoming and to help us in the drive which we do in every ways, and the corporates also have been very happy to fund the activities. Say Trees have recently was invited in one of the UN forum. I have also presented one of the papers in Delhi University on the plantation subject. So good work is happening on ground, and if you do good work, from the NGO perspective, if you do really something good on the ground, you will get recognized, and many people will start following you and would like to work with you. And this is what is our experience in last 4 or 5 years.
Great, thanks very much.
Yeah, there is, of course. So if for example, if you go for a sapling, like sir just mentioned, so there are many NGOs, and I would not like to name anyone, but they do buy sapling for starting from actually 5 rupees goes to 10-15 rupees kind of a sapling, and the survivability of them is actually 10%, and then the 10% is not because of the mercy of the people who are running the project, but because of the mercy of Almighty. So those 10% survive because of the Almighty. When we actually take 7 feet or 6 feet high, that means the sapling has to actually spend time in the nursery, which is the reason of that our sapling generally would cost at least 60-70 rupees. Now this 60-70 rupees actually goes into the maintenance of the and also you should understand in a nursery environment, thousands of sapling can be cared in one local place. As soon as they are distributed right in any of the land, then to take care of the same 1,000 would need many more resources in every ways. Whereas in small place, if you put 1,000 trees, and then somebody is taking care of in larger gunny bag, that's very easy from the maintenance point of view. So the cost goes up, but not so high that the project becomes unviable. So project still remains viable. We can still execute the project.
Right. So one thing I'd like to point out about what you said, and it's also true for Segal Foundation, is that sustainability of your CSR effort is a major challenge that we all face, whether it's the trees surviving or whether it's the infrastructure that Segal Foundation builds as the community taking it forward. So this is a major issue about CSR. Is it just flash in the pan for a little while, or can you make it stay? So I think...
Yeah, can I request actually Aman, he comes from the media background, and I sincerely feel that if media actually start pushing some of these initiatives, which Times actually does. I remember Hero Honda Times, one of the plantation drive, which was more than I think 1 lakh trees planted in Delhi area, right? And in Bangalore as well. In fact, we were also one of those contenders to do this plantation, but it didn't come to us. And I think Times Foundation did with somebody else. So such projects do get a lot of media credibility and hype when the Times is actually involved in that. But what about those projects wherein Times of India, Times Foundation is not directly involved? How do you think the coverage of such should be taken into?
Right. So I'd ask you to address both what you do as CSR, and then the question about how media can help.
So thank you. So good afternoon to the audience and to the fellow panelists and to the chair, Jane. And so I think Times as a group has been in CSR, or well, actually philanthropy, to put it correctly, for a long time. It's a less known fact that the Bharatiya Gyanpith Trust is actually run by the Times of India group family, by the Jain family. And there are other institutions such as the Times of India Relief Fund, and we also have the Times Foundation, which is perhaps the most public of the institutions that we have, which has done a lot of work with regard to the tsunami relief after 2004. So there is a good commitment in terms of what we also seek to give back to society, because we earn from it. And in terms of our CSR initiatives, the flagship Teach India program is actually what we really have been pursuing in terms of our CSR. And this was actually much before the government has come up with Section 135. So just as we have skilling, manufacturing, and most skilling capacity is in the manufacturing space, the concept of Teach India is skilling for the services sector. So we have a large body of unemployed youth today in the country, and many of them are in urban settings. So the only impediment for them, and most of them are in fact even trained and qualified, but they don't know English. And it's an obvious fact that English actually opens up many doors for you. So it's not only about sectors like the BPO sector, but even skills. English will come in relevant, will have a great relevance even in things like hospitality or even healthcare, for instance. Everywhere English is being looked at as a hygiene now, as a hygiene skill to have. And that is where the Teach India program has worked very wonderfully for us, where 30,000 youth have been trained over the last 5 years. And the curriculum and pedagogy was actually put together by Times of India along with the British Council. And so this is primarily what we are running as our CSR initiative. There are a few other initiatives that have now come in after Section 135 has come in, but this is primarily our CSR initiative. And I think, in a way, linking to what Deokant also had just referred to, Teach India itself is really about community involvement, where the teachers for the Teach India program are actually people like you and I, like us, who would want to give back to the society, to the underprivileged. And so what we also do is that we invite people to come and teach. So there's a train the trainers program that is there, which has also been developed. And after 49 hours of training, you're ready to actually come and teach the students. So I think that has really worked wonderfully well for us. And 50% of the learners of the Teach India program have actually been placed in companies. So a large success of that owing to the fact that many of the teachers themselves were people working in corporate India. So I feel that CSR, for success of CSR, involvement of the community, and by community I am not referring to the beneficiary community, but people who are concerned citizens, civil society, is actually what will make CSR a much bigger success, and that's where I think media can play a powerful role. So what we do at Time CSR, so this is one aspect of what we do, but Time CSR, we are seeking to actually provide our media assets for use in CSR projects like a green plantation drive, which in fact we are collaborating with Save Trees on certain projects in Bangalore as well as in Gurgaon, where it's a three-way partnership where we have an NGO partner who has the expertise, who really understands the social problem and what needs to be addressed, the pain points. We have a corporate who's willing to give money from their CSR funds, and we provide in the media so that the social good can actually have a multiplier effect. It can actually catalyze the social good, the social impact that is created.
Very good, thank you. Let me ask, actually I'm going to ask Ravi Kalia to speak next, and we'll come back to Mr. Asthana. Would you talk about the work that you do and how CSR is part of it?
Yes, please. Good afternoon to everyone. First of all, my sincere thanks for hosting such a meaningful platform today. And it's a wonderful subject has been given to us, CSR corporates and the coordination with the NGOs. Because I believe companies under CSR Act has a lot of money and NGOs have passion, and if both of them unite together, then we can really do a lot for our nation for the betterment. And it's a great opportunity today that we are interacting. A lot of corporates are here, and the NGO platform has also been designed. So thank you for allowing me to say something about the activities which I am doing. I'm representing one NGO called the Earth Saviors Foundation, and under the banner of our NGO, we are basically a rescue home. We work with different state police departments, we work with social welfare departments, and we are the only official home for Government of Haryana. So we actually rescue abandoned and disabled people from the roads. You can be seeing often a lot of people are roaming naked on street, or you can find them eating from the stinking garbage yards, or maybe they lose their brain and there is no one to look after them. Often all of us, we over-ignore them. But in our foundation, with the blessings of God, we have a home which is not from far here, hardly 20 minutes, in a place called the Bandwadi village. So there we have accommodated hundreds of abandoned such people, and we try to offer them a dignified life by giving them food, accommodation, medicines, and every day-to-day amenities. And we work round the clock, 7 days in a week, fearlessly, tirelessly, and selflessly. We have around 50 people on permanent payroll. We are proud to share that we are recognized by Government of India. The government have recently honored us with the license to get unconditional support from overseas, and we are also recognized under CSR, and we are also working with UNHCR, which is United Nations High Commissioners for Refugees, and all these people bring abandoned and disabled people to us. Initially, since 2008 when we started, when I founded this foundation, the seva was only for poor people, but it is very disheartening to share when I myself go midnight on roads looking for such community to give them a dignified life. Once I quote you one example, it's around 3 to 4 years before, I was midnight going on road looking for such people. I found a man, he had big nails, big hair, and he was stinking badly. When I brought him to my institution, we call it a Gurukul, I discovered he is a retired judge. And after retirement, his family took all his money and they kicked him out. Then after that, I also found that this sir had studied from London School of Economics. So it's almost 4 years he's living with me. And then another sir we rescued from road. He happened to be the first cousin of Lord Sir Rajpal. His backbone was broken and he's still with us. There are many government officers, sir, sorry to quote, there are many IAS and IFS officers also discovered from road, then they live with us. Their children have kicked them out. Recently, one man has been brought by police because his son had locked him up for 10 years in room. He is with us. So, starting from the graduates to army men, to industrialists, to NRIs, to the government bureaucrats, and the poorest to purest, all of them are living with us. And I'm very happy that God has given us such great opportunity to look after them. And the sufferings remain very visible there. Every week we have a death. In span of 8 years, more than 1,000 people have died in my arms. So by the blessings of God, I myself cremate them. Further, I collect their ashes and take them for Visarjan to Haridwar. So over the years, the government have also gained a lot of confidence in our seva. As I said, we work round the clock. So government offers us unclaimed and unidentified dead bodies also. Those can be seen floating in Yamuna river, or they hang themselves or commit suicide or murders, or maybe chopped up by train, or they die in road accidents. So we offer them, we offer kafan ka kapda, havan samigri, dan dakshina to pandits, and then take their ashes from Visarjan to Haridwar. So again, by the blessings of Lord Almighty, I have cremated around 4,980 unclaimed dead bodies so that their soul get peace in heaven. So that's how we work round the clock. But again, when it's come to CSR, before I quote about CSR, there's another good initiative our foundation has taken since 2008. We paste stickers on the back bumpers of the cars. It says, "Do not honk." In Delhi and NCR, most of you might have seen where this slogan says, some places, "Kutta bhi bina wajah nahi bhokta." In other, we wrote, "Do not honk." So that campaign also goes on round the clock. Our team goes regularly on the streets. We have written to the Environment Ministry concerns, to the Pollution Control Board, to all the governors and lieutenant governors of the different states in India, and also with the state chief ministers. And the teams are definitely on the road every second, third day, and we offer these stickers for free of charge. So there's a huge expense floating behind our activities. Like when I come back to our Gurukul again, so monthly expense to our foundation is somewhere floating between 25 to 30 lakh rupees a month. Individual, those have gained confidence in our seva, they help us on and off basis. We try to maintain the dignity of the seva. We never play with people's sentiments by requesting them, pleading them, "Give us money, give us money, this man is dying," or "There's a discomfort." We never say that. But yes, when we come to CSR, we plead, we keep begging them, we keep requesting them. I sincerely apologize. I take my step back when I say very positively about CSR. There's a long way to go. The corporates have to come forward to justify good NGOs, because at this particular time, all of them have made their mind set. They all think when his name comes to NGO, oh, it means something you have in your mind, something you're playing with people's sentiment. Actually, it is not true. So because everyone has locked up their mind, the corporates, do not mind it, Amanji, they do not come forward to help NGOs. They need to come forward. If they do that, we can make a better world. We can help ourselves to heal up the wounds of Mother Earth, because I believe due to human negligence and selfishness, we have given countless wounds, to start with poverty, hunger, crime, and the concrete jungles are multiplying, the water crisis, the traffic hazards are everywhere. So we have to go a very long way. And if corporates come forward to help NGOs, then it's the shortest and the fastest way to connect ourselves with the Lord Almighty. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ravi. So, Mr. Asthana is an IAS officer with 38 years in service, and he is part of Segal Foundation. He is a consultant for us, and he helps us with all the government liaison, which becomes crucial because one of the things that we're trying to do is mobilize the biggest funds that there are in India, which is not CSR, it's the government. There are all these laws and funding allocations for working on rural development in India. And in order for those to reach the people have to know how to claim them. They have to know they're there, they're eligible, how to submit claims, how to pursue them when there's delay. And Mr. Asthana has helped us with the larger efforts. In terms of a challenge, Mr. Asthana, mobilizing those government funds, what do you see as impediments?
Thank you, Jane, and thanks to the organizers also for inviting us here. Since I have been on the other side of the table also, and also now for the last, I retired in December 2001. After that, I was CEO and the director of an NGO. And after that, I am helping the Segal Foundation in the capacity which Jane has just now mentioned. Let me tell you very bluntly that there is a very, very hidden distrust in the government and the civil sector organizations, any NGOs or whatever. Now, you will ask me why, because now I have been on this side. The point is that this distrust is arising out of some of the studies. I am reminded of a PhD thesis from the Jamia Millia Islamia, where it said that 90% of the NGOs are to be found in these garages of the members of the parliament. You may agree, you may not agree, but this is the thesis I am quoting. In fact, Nishat would tell you the name of the PhD writer who's written all this. Secondly, the government doesn't permit most of the officers to travel, let's say, business class. Only when I became a secretary in the government and a joint secretary, then I was allowed to travel business. As a secretary, of course, in the first class. But before that, economy class. Now, some of the NGOs, I should say, and I will not name any one of them, we were in a conference. Most of my life and the career I have worked in agriculture, rural development, food, social sectors. We were in a conference during the day, and all problems, like my friend has mentioned, and he has also mentioned, were discussed, and we were trying to talk about the funds, the government schemes, its non-viability, and many other things. The issue was to raise the administrative costs that were permissible under the scheme. And lo and behold, I was traveling in the evening to Hyderabad, and then I found that the fellow traveler was also traveling from an NGO. He was in the business class. Now, if you are on the work of the NGO, I would consider it very criminal that you are trying to mobilize government funds and traveling business class. I had the chairman of the NGO where I worked, an IFS officer who all his life had been traveling in the first class, but he used to travel in the economy when he became the chairman of the NGO I was working. Now, this distrust arises out of these things. There is enough literature available on the type of the NGOs who are working in these social sectors. The type of commitment seen here, or the type of commitment in the Sehgal Foundation with which now I am associated almost 11 years, is very different. Is very different because I've been a divisional card for the cost structure of the water harvesting structure of the government, because there were 3 organizations in the government who were doing it: the Forest Department, the Agriculture Department, and Mewat Development Agency itself. Then I found that the agency was better supervised and its cost per unit was less. When I came to Sehgal Foundation, I discovered that our costs were even less. His Excellency the Governor of Haryana, Mr. Kidwai, used to take a lot of interest in Mewat because there was an inherent prejudice against Mewat for 2 reasons. It was the majority of the people in Mewat, in Haryana, as well as in neighboring Rajasthan, they are Muslims. And because of this, there was inherent problem. When I was divisional commissioner here, I used to ask the officers, show me your tour diary. And I discovered at that time Mewat was part of Gurgaon district. Have you done any touring in Mewat? One of the officers told me that, no sir, I don't go to Mewat at all. I said, why? He was in the education sector. I said, why? He said कि उधर लोग गाय काट के लटका देते हैं. So being a Hindu, I can't see that. I said, all right. I have also been touring Mewat in my capacity as divisional commissioner. I did not see it ever that let's go together. I challenged him, let's go together and see where गाय को काट के लटका दिया है कि आपकी sensibilities मारी जा रही हैं. Couldn't show me any. He couldn't show me any, and I warned him then that I will have you out of the system, from not only from Gurgaon but anywhere else, because you are a person who is basically a liar. Don't do your work seriously, etc., etc. Now, Governor used to take a lot of interest in Mewat development. Apart from many other things, during his time we established the Mewat Model School, because the level of education among the boys as well as girls in Mewat was very, very poor. We wanted to train them so that they can occupy the higher echelons of services and so on, and that gives a lot of confidence. When I was commissioner here, 2 of my officers, young IAS officers, they were ladies. One was the additional deputy commissioner and another was the, at that time she was the under training. One was from UP, the other was from Andhra. And I used to take them and I used to give them separate cars, although the under training officers are not allowed the separate car. But I used to give them car. You know why? Because if I go to Mewat and there is a policeman sitting there as their escort, then he will open the door of the car. And this produces a lot of effect on the people who are there as spectators, that look, there is a lady for whom the policeman is opening the car door. Now, slowly and slowly Mewat has come up. But then they were making it for drinking water. Drinking water is the real problem. Forget about the irrigation which Anjali is mentioning. The drinking water is the problem. A rainy scheme the government brought out, and when I looked at the details, And this now I am saying as an NGO worker from Sahgal Foundation. I told the governor that this scheme won't work. Almost 7 years later, I have now written letter to Haryana government that this is the scheme, this is the cost you projected. I don't know what is the cost now you have already incurred, and not a drop of drinking water has been made available to the people of Mewat. Then the media came, one article has been done, I'm great about it. I wish Arnab Goswami could take up our cause also, because people say that he can be heard even on Mars and not in India alone. You know, the per unit cost of delivering a service by the government for variety of reasons is much, much higher than what a sincere NGO can do. Whether it is the Soils Conservation Department, whether it is the Forest Department, they are just the same. But the NGOs are distrusted by the government because of these things. 90% of them are bogus. How to locate the 10%, I don't know. If I were in the government, I will find it extremely hard to locate them. Secondly, because of this distrust, we got a FM radio, and Jane has already told you about its impact on the people of Mewat, because now the people of the area own the radio. It's very interesting. It works for 13-14 hours a day, and it is being run by the people of Mewat, and it is really doing a human service. Now, every time we go, because the government does not release, I am now telling the other side, the government does not release the grants in one go. And it comes from Government of India to Haryana government, then to us. And then the monitoring and this thing, it takes months after we have told them to look, we have completed this part of the bargain, kindly issue the next installments. If Sahgal Foundation was not Sahgal Foundation having resources of its own, the radio would have closed. What do? You got the money, you spent it, the program is being run successfully, you don't realize it, but you first want. In fact, every time, for 3 years we ran to the government of Haryana to release the fund which came from the government of India. The person who was dealing in the government of India, he was my colleague, he was from Haryana Cadre. The person who was, of course, here, he was also Haryana Cadre, and we were on the same, as you call it, a brotherhood or whatever you may call it. But still, every time we will go to get the funds released, the government will ask, give us the copy of all the programs which you have done. Now, there are 365 days in a year, and every time we will take the CDs. The last installment when they were releasing, because I didn't want to annoy them, the last installment when it was being released, I asked them, has anybody seen any one of our programs? All of them kept quiet. Every time we went for the release of the funds, they will say, get us the copies of all the programs which we have relayed.
Right.
Now,
So I think you've well laid out some of the challenges in mobilizing government funds. We'll come back to some solutions in a minute.
just 1 minute more.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know how many of you have seen this notification of 2014, February 2014, listing some 10 items which can be taken up under
CSR.
Now, my grievance is that rural development is the last item. Do you think it is fair? This is the last item here. Secondly, there are some of the programs like the beautification of environment, this, that and so on, which the donors can use for the beautification of their neighboring areas and many other things, not for the benefit of the people. Do you think they should be not deleted? Probably it is too short a period, 2 years is too short a period to ask for the review of the programs which have been listed here. But if I were there, the second half will completely disappear, except that rural development will be brought in the forefront. Thank you, Jane.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Asthana. So, full of experience, full of very concrete stories about difficulty in releasing funds from the government that are there to alleviate poverty. So I would like to ask Anjali to speak for a moment and then others to respond about the issue of making a match between the NGO that has certain expertise, in our case water, agriculture, good governance, working with panchayats, working with citizens, working with community radio, and matching with corporate social responsibility priorities of companies.
I mean, this is the issue that we face, because as NGOs working in the community, we have certain expertise, and then the corporates, they have certain, they have their own priorities. So one thing where we face a problem, as an NGO working with communities, is that corporates, sometimes they want to see tangible results, like infrastructure development, and there is very little emphasis on the building capacities of the people. They'll say that, okay, we can fund, suppose, toilet constructions in schools or school renovation, but they'll say that, but the amount of money that to be spent on building capacities of school management committees to maintain that structure, they said, no, that we cannot fund, because it's not visible. Like, how do we say that, okay, now these committees are better? There is no tangible results there. So this is one of the issues that, we want the corporates to address, that it's very important to invest on building capacities of communities. Even in agriculture, the issue of women farmers, how do we build their capacities? So these soft areas, the soft areas is somewhere where we don't get, a lot of funds, but these areas are very important. There is a lot of funding for building toilets, building, check dams and things like that, but very little funding for areas which really matter. Because unless we spend on communities, not much results. Then again, sustainability will become an issue. There will be infrastructure, but then it'll die down. It won't be of any use. So that is one area.
So, Aman, you're on the corporate side. How do you look at finding NGO partners? Is it hard for you to make matches, or what's the corporate view on this? We have a lot of people who come to us to do due diligence, check us out, and so forth. I know Ravi mentioned to me over lunch that he's talked with about 70 different corporations over the years. They came, they saw, and maybe they personally helped, but it's hard to make the match sometime.
For us, as I think, for us as a media company, it's not as difficult for us, perhaps the other corporates, because we have various relationships with the government and indeed even with different NGOs and institutions, because that's a part and parcel of our regular business. And in that sense, I think for us it's not so difficult, because we work with them in different capacities and roles, and to be able to identify. But going in terms of adding in terms of feedback which one receives from other corporates who we also kind of collaborate with or partner, I think there are two issues, and which I think Mr. Kalra also was kind of hinting at, that there's such great work which is happening, it's driven by so much of passion, and but somewhere the corporate funding is perhaps not coming in. And I think there are two things. One is around measurability, that if the fund is being used, is it really going to produce the kind of impact which is very measurable, and there's a certain way of reporting, an end-line and a baseline. So I think today that is of prime importance, because ultimately a CSR is a decision some officer or some functionary, even the board, is responsible. And they're accountable for the budget being spent. So as long as they're very clear as to how the money is getting spent and there's a clear reporting around that, there's a great deal of comfort. Otherwise, it's easy to say no. I mean, I'm talking from a B2B perspective. It's easy to say no to a proposal. It's very difficult to say yes. But what helps is a very clear end-line, baseline, a very clear reporting, dashboarding that happens. And I think that's where a lot of innovation also is happening in the sector. And my sense is that even Arsym is going to add. The other thing which I feel is that the concept of shared value, which now corporates are imbibing, and there has to be a good synergy with a business operation or business strategy of a corporate. And because of, the same money has to create an impact. It must synergize with the way I do business. And to the extent that that is possible, I've seen investments flow very rapidly. So I think that's where the challenge also comes in more from the NGO side, that how can we kind of have a very credible impact that's measurable, and then also the synergy with the business operational strategy.
Yeah. So I will just add a few things. So corporate are and would be in future also fixated on something known as ROI. So anything they would do, they would always like to measure this return on investment. Currently, as far as the investment in CSR activity is concerned, there are not really great models to analyze the SROI, they call it social return on investment. So some of, if you study these models, SROI models, they're quite complex and complicated. It's not very easy for us on ground who are working to actually fill in those numbers and come out with the real ROI for them. But I'm sure as the industry matures, there will be some models which will come out, which can be actually used by NGOs. And once we start showing ROI, there are two things. One is on ground you will see the changes, and second thing is when the SROI is shown to the corporate, we will solve the credibility issue, which I think Asthana sir was saying. So once we solve the credibility issue, and not everyone would be able to solve, because not everyone is actually doing such kind of job, but people who are doing it, they would solve this credibility issue, and then a lot of challenges around funds, even though being there but not being flowing very easily, would I think be removed. And media, with the participation of media, I think media is also responsible in setting up this credibility of an NGO. Like for example, Mr. Kalra just mentioned the experiences of the NGO. So and to be very frank, when I first time actually I heard about your NGO, I was thinking it must be something to do with saving the earth, maybe carbon imprint, and then the plantation drive. So those are the thing which I was thinking you would be involved in. But this is totally different from my expectation. So maybe more involvement of the media, some SROI models which can be shown on the ground. Credibility is a problem which can be surely solved. And once it is solved, funding should not be an issue, I believe.
So the other part of our mandate as a panel is to talk about the roadmap forward for India. Ravi, would you like to begin with that? What do you think are 2 or 3 concrete things that should happen in India for us to make CSR more vibrantly serving the people of India who it's intended to serve?
Thank you for giving opportunity again. Yes, I agree. We have actually very long way to go, and we are good people. We love our nation. We are concerned. We are passionate. The government is equally coming forward. By the blessings, we have a very stable government at this time, and if we all unite together, all the directions are open. At this particular time, all of us are actually going towards adopting commercial jobs. But I feel jobs, those are actually in need, are all vacant. The doors are open. Like we said, crime, poverty, traffic hazards, water crisis, work on the women empowerment, work on the cross-country border solutions, work to save the forest. the recycling processes, everything needs to be done. There's a huge work needs to be done. If we all do it, of course it can be done.
So in part what you're saying is that we need to encourage our young people, our next
Yes.
generation of people, to do things that are meaningful. Figure out how, through all the clever minds that are around, you can actually make a living being constructive and helping with inclusive growth.
The education system is very strong at this time in our country, but the implementation need to be done. If that happens, we are okay with everything.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Do we have 1 minute?
Yeah, for sure.
1 minute
I'm
wrap
so
up.
sorry.
Okay. Right. So one of the issues that's come out is the need to build sustainability in CSR efforts, meaning we hope that there will be sensitivity by corporates to fund soft skills, to fund work with communities so that the communities have the capacity to take whatever changes there are forward. And as Anjali had pointed out before, sometimes corporate donors want to support physical infrastructure but are less inclined to support training people. But it's actually people that sustain any improvement. Mr. Asthana talked with us about difficulties in mobilizing government funds. I think I'm going to give you the last word, Mr. Asthana. I know we don't have much time, but what could be done to make that mobilization of government funds happen?
I cannot give you a prescription that this is what it will happen. I don't know, this lady is also there and she wants you to finish in a minute. Yes. But one of the programs of the government which was people oriented, in fact there is a leading article in Indian Express today by Nikhil Day and Aruna Roy, Manrega, where the entire thing along with the program was given to the village community. It has not worked. You get the government you deserve, that is the famous saying in the public administration. We are a very complex society. You have just seen it in Haryana. Very, very complex society. So it's difficult. It's difficult. It will take time to develop the trust between the genuine NGOs and the government. Right. If I were on the other side in the government, where I was for 37 years, it will be a Herculean task to make me understand that you are an honest set of people or he is an honest set of people. It will take a lot of time because most of the people who are in this sector, they are not trustworthy.
So I'd like to thank all the panelists. I think I'd like to thank the organizers because, again, what is a way forward is for there to be discussion across sectors, discussion with people from the corporate sector, from the NGO sector, from the government to resolve some of the problems with implementation of CSR. We really do need to accelerate the delivery of dignified life to people all over India. And I agree with Aman very much that everybody needs to do that, not just the NGOs, not just the government, but really society as a whole needs to take up that challenge because inclusive growth is going to be helpful for business, it's going to be helpful for everyone.
I think there's a question.
Yeah, my name is Professor Sandeep Maan and I had sort of a small question. I've been following Professor Michael Porter's thought on CSR, wherein he said that all this CSR dependent on philanthropy, on charity, is just a drop. It's not going to be helpful. It's capitalism or business which has learned to solve society's problems. For instance, about 100 years back, distance was a problem. No government could handle it. The automobile sector came up and now it's not a problem. And we're willing to pay for it, pay for the comfort and everything else. So if some corporate thinks that there are unclaimed dead bodies or water is a problem, drinking water, or say women health, pregnant women health, something like that. You have to learn to build a business model which pays for itself, which is scalable and which is sustainable. If you're going to depend on governments, why should that be? A friend of mine has pasted on Facebook a wrecked up college of Sanskrit, and he's saying what a shame, probably a BJP guy. Now why should the government come in and protect a Sanskrit college? If the college is good, it has to prove its relevance to the society, it can innovate, it can come up with summer camps or whatever way, and that's how the best of museums in the world are all private owned. Government, corporate, charity, this is not going to work. What is your take on this? Thank you.
Right, so I think we may have to take this one offline, but quickly I would say the government collects a lot of money from everybody, so we should hold them accountable for what they collect it for. So either, you know, if you're going to reduce all the taxes and not have the money there and figure out another way to handle it, that's one thing, but you have the money being collected, so it should be spent on what the legislators have legislated, which is to provide poverty alleviation programs and services to the public. That would be my take on it.
And I would just add one more thing. You know, this is not either or kind of a problem. So of course there is a space for corporate to come into and do whatever they wish to do, like, right? I mean, if they want to solve the problem of plantation, they can of course do. There are, I know, companies which do plantation activities, and that model also survives. So there are NGOs and there are corporate, both can survive in the same space together.
So again, I thank everybody.
Sure,
on the
ma'am.
panel. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you so much.